record it to my computer. Yep, I just started recording, thanks. Okay, Bharvi, please tell us. I just unmuted your... I'm trying to unmute your microphone. Can you, but it's not working. Can you unmute it from your side? You must be muting the microphone from your side, Bharvi, because I can't unmute it. So you need to click on the unmute button, which should be down on your bottom left. There's a mute, unmute button, a little picture of a microphone.
Hello? Is it working now?
Yeah, now you're unmuted.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
There, that's why we couldn't hear you. Thank you.
Okay.
So please tell us.
Well, I think the best thing for me to get 10 would be to start in the yoga studio, the teachers.
Yep.
Here. Start talking about what I'm doing with the people that work here at the studio, because I think it would be first the teachers would be the ones that I would need to be interested before I kind of impart it to all the students here. Because we do have, we do see a lot of people every day, but they are not meditating. They are doing asana. So it's about first, I think, maybe moving through the people that I work with and get them meditating so that they can start feeling it and understanding what we're doing, and then apply it to what we do for the members in the studio.
How many teachers are there?
In this location, I have 3 full-time teachers, and then we have about 5 of us, like assistant teachers that are part-timers. So maybe 5 or 6 here, that's 8. But we have another location. I'm in Financial District. I have another one in South of Market. They have another, I think, 5 full-time teachers and another support staff of 5 to 7. So we're probably talking 20, maybe like 15 to 20 of teachers. People who have taken a yoga teacher training program or have been to India or something.
So maybe if they're really interested, I could come and do a workshop for all the teachers.
Okay, even better, yeah. With the guitar and everything, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because since we're musically inclined here.
Yeah, find out,
okay.
That's really interesting possibility. Cool.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Glad I asked the question.
Yeah, me too.
But then, of course, how many students do you have?
Well, that's a lot. I mean, every day we have the possibility in each studio to see 175 if our rooms are packed. So I don't know the full number count of us on the roster here, but
okay.
I mean, quite busy, yeah.
So there's a lot of even much bigger possibilities with the students.
Yeah.
A percentage of them are going to be interested. We have to find out.
Right.
Okay, that's great. Cool. Thanks a lot.
Okay. I'll mute.
Yeah. Okay. We can lower your hand. There we go. So if you want to speak, please raise your hand. If you don't know how, tell us in the chat. Okay. So Infinity, who is still unknown to us. Friends and word of mouth. Okay, let's expand on that. Can you actually, I'm going to unmute you, Infinity. Again, I can't because you've muted yourself. Can you go to your bottom left and unmute your microphone? Oh, now I know who you are. I know your laugh. We've broken your secret code.
The infinity laugh.
This isn't the infinity laugh. This is the new thing.
Actually, I have no idea right now.
Okay, but you did say invite friends and word of mouth. That can work really well depending on your situation.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm discovering that I don't seem to have the power to. I'm supposed to have the power to mute you all, but I apparently can't. Thanks, Didi. Okay, let's hear from somebody else. I want to get some, we're getting ideas here. I'm going to start calling out names. Okay, Didi Madapuna. Again, I don't, for some reason, I'm not able to control your microphones. I have no power. Oh no. So you have to unmute your own microphone, please.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. So what I did, actually I didn't do much marketing, but when I went to the college where I give classes, they are the one who did for me. So last time when I had my classes last week, so the coordinator and the organizer who are calling the people, sending email to their students, to their employees. So I just go and then do the work, you know. So I think one thing that I will do in the future, the same thing. I just go to the institution and they will do for me.
That is great. That's what I like doing as well. We talked about that basically a bit last week. You know, there's kind of two options. Either you go to an existing group or someone else gets the group together for you, or you do it yourself. And of course, it's easier if you can get someone else to do it. That's fantastic. Great. And remember last time we were talking about different kind of groups we could approach. And one of the ones that reminded me of that there's a kind of a whole untapped kind of category out there is the martial arts studios. There's so many martial arts groups and classes and studios, and it's actually I did do this in the past, and it's kind of easy to get them to interest in meditation. Okay, Prakash, please unmute your microphone.
I think, well, I've lived in this area for 33 years in Northampton, Massachusetts, and I've got, I'm currently doing a study circle with about 6 active participants. That's going to go till the end of January. So I think from that group of people, there's a lot of, I would invite them to the meditation class as well as other friends of theirs. Yep. And I do have contacts, both email and Facebook, of 400 or 500 people in the area or more.
Oh, that's great. How many email addresses and how many Facebook friends in the area?
Let's see. Facebook makes it difficult to let's see. I have all these friends of Ananda Marga and in the United States, and I can't invite them to Path of Bliss events because Facebook will only show me my first 10 lists, and after that, I can't access them. I'd have to know each name one by one, which is very, very labor intensive.
Exactly.
So
how many of your emails?
It's got to be, dozens, a few hundred actually, probably.
A few hundred. If you've got a few hundred local email addresses, that's great. That can really...
Well, it's because of all other stuff I've done with dance and with organizing other events on economic democracy kinds of things.
Yep.
Just,
that's useful.
Business.
Email
so I have a lot.
Email addresses are generally much more useful than Facebook friends because you can reach them directly, and you can track whether they actually open it, and if you know where they are, even better. So that's really useful. Cool.
Right.
Thank you.
I've also been inviting people to the meditation workshops at Ananda Viplava that Devanish is leading. So I've been inviting people locally. Just started doing that recently. So I think I have a lot of potential that I just scratching the surface.
Perfect. You've obviously got a strong local network. How far is Ananda Viplava from?
It's 2 hours away.
2 hours. Okay, that's fine for a weekend. Perfect. Yeah. Great. Thank you, Prakash.
I would. Oh, yeah? If someone actually was talking to last night who's planning to go to a 10-day Vipassana and having mixed feelings, and they saw the event, at Ananda Viplava. I thought that might be, I was explaining why it might be more advantageous than going 10 days of silent meditation, many, many hours a day versus developing a daily practice.
Great. Yeah, there's a lot of people that I've met who've done Vipassana 10-day silent retreats. Many of them had, found it hard, but had a good experience from it. Some of them it was a big breakthrough, but a lot of them still have trouble establishing a daily practice.
Yeah, I've noticed that also with people like in the Zen meditation, they'll go to lots of intensive zazen, but then they meditate on a daily basis. Like that's really hard to do, and
And
they
I think
may just sort of go to.
I think one of the reasons is that Buddhism, and this was actually one of Baba's critiques of Buddhism. He said the problem is it's designed as a monastic tradition. It's like meditation designed for monks or living in a monastery, and it's not as easy for lay people. It's not as suitable for lay people to get into the way that they teach it and the kind of yeah, just the whole style of it. Whereas an undermarket practice is deliberately designed for more for the general public.
You can meditate anywhere.
Okay, cool. That's useful. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
You want to switch your mic off? Okay, Phoenix 3. I'm also curious. Tell us. Can we hear from Phoenix 3? Oh, Phoenix. I want to know who Phoenix 3 is. Your microphone's open. Phoenix 3, you want to share with us how you're going to get people to come to your group? I'm not hearing anything. Even though the microphone's on? Okay, let's go to somebody else. So who else would like to share with us? How are you getting people to come? How about you, Ishika?
Hello, Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Thanks for encouraging me to volunteer. Just kidding. Well, okay, so I guess I'll first try to use the opportunity with Bhaskar and family in his store. Probably see if I can have a space there and make some flyers to give away to registers or make posters, put it around, and maybe perhaps put something on my Facebook page and ask some friends in the area to help me to join in and to help me spread the word. We have there's also some email list. We have those people who are interested in yoga and meditation, who even tried to come to DC before. The list is not very big. I would say total I may try to assemble maybe less than 100 people. So, but then the next question would be to how to keep them stay, right? Coming back.
Yep.
Well, this is a little bit tricky for me. I don't know if they don't want to come. I feel like I cannot force them. So I'll just do my best with kirtans and answer their questions while they're there, and just try to do some follow-ups casually. But I don't know how to make people come back, and I don't know if I'm able to make them come back. Yeah.
Well, there is. We didn't talk about this last week, but one way that gets people inspired to come is food.
Don't feel obligated to bring some though.
Well, there's different ways of doing it. You can either have people come and just make a donation, and you arrange the food. Maybe you and another Magi take turns preparing the food. That's one way to do it. Another is to have a potluck, but then you've got to train them all in the no onions, no garlic, which is also good. We do that in Oakland, and we just in the invitation we have a little paragraph explaining what to bring and what not to bring. That works pretty well with the potluck. There's a couple of options there, but food, and it's not just the food that people like. It's the social dimension of sharing food that can be very, very helpful in building a feeling of community.
Shortly, I would like to share that for a brief time we had, maybe for like a month or two, maybe months, we had in spring, we had weekly kirtan meditation class with just a few of us. And I noticed when there's a fellow who's like really excited about it, it's like that person will bring others along.
Yep.
Who has lots like big networks. So I realized how it's important to have some people like that, and kind of like, you know what I mean, to like bring others along. And but some reason the summer started, everybody spread away, and it's like since then we didn't went back. That person got initiated though.
Good.
That would be nice.
So that's a person with a lot of friends and big network.
Yeah.
Social person. Great. So yeah, I initiated someone in Los Angeles like that. He's got a big circle of friends. He's a musician, and he's organizing a talk at his place. So he's inviting all his friends. I'm going there on Monday. So that's another thing you might want to suggest. If that person is very interested, see if they'd like to have it, if they've got a suitable place of their own. If they'd because then their friends feel more comfortable coming to their place because they already know them, and you'll get.
Oh, that's a good tip. Thank you. He teaches actually asanas at the yoga studio.
Yeah, it's a thing musicians do. They ask people to organize house concerts. People invite all their friends, and because again, going to your friend's house is very easy, normal. You like doing it, so it's an easy way to get a crowd if you've got that key person who is themselves very enthusiastic. So that's a nice.
Yeah, I see. He keeps inviting for different events like vegan potlucks, this and that. But so far, I wasn't able to make those things. I guess I should. If I want to keep on going, then I should make some contacts. Okay.
Thanks, Ishika.
Thank you, Dada.
Okay, so Peter, I'd like you to share. I know you've got a plan. Would you like to share your plan?
Yeah, my plan is very simple. So I will just share with my colleagues at work in one of the offices. I will start meditating and see how it goes for them. If it goes well and they see some progress, I'll go to HR. We do have wellness program, it just doesn't include meditation at the moment. If HR supports, I'll go to the internal communications department, who will just throw emails to everybody in different offices. And my hope is that basically maybe throughout the week, we have 3 offices, and whenever I'm in the office, we can have a meditation, and eventually I hope I will be able to bring more people to learn how to do the being a leader of the group meditation. And maybe it's going to be like whomever is in the office at this moment, he or she is going to provide it. But the idea of food is very interesting. I didn't thought about this. I wanted to do it during the lunchtime. We usually have lunchtime from 12 to 1. So and I can buy food or order food and have it in place. The question now is, should it be before or after? And probably please during the next few sessions speak a bit more about how to properly do this.
Sure, we can talk about that, but certainly they should meditate before eating. Yeah.
Before eating.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's a great idea. Cool, thanks. So yeah, you've got an interesting opportunity. A lot of people at your office or your work, 3 offices that you rotate between your role. So that's a really great opportunity. Cool.
Yeah, we also have all of those construction sites to which I'm going to go to as well.
Right, each one of those got a whole bunch of contractors. Yeah. Right.
My hope is just to show that it is productive and improves productivity and safety, and then maybe leadership will support it.
Yeah, that's what the company wants to hear for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Peter. That's cool. Okay. Anyone else want to share anything before we go on to the next thing? Last chance. Raise your hand if you want. Okay. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen.
Didi Anandaviva.
Oh, Didi Viva. Okay, tell us. What's your plan?
Yeah, in New Haven, edge of the Woods Market, we have this Seva boutique, small boutique, this fundraiser boutique for raising funds for Haiti and India.
Didi, can you speak slowly, because your signal is not strong, so speak slowly so it's hard to hear.
All right. So yeah, at the boutique, that's a fundraiser boutique for Haiti and India. So people come there, and when I'm there, I talk to them what we do, and I'm a meditation teacher. So, oh, really? And then, where do you teach? So I tell them. So in the beginning, that's how I got. Then I made flyers, and I have big posters that I put in the store downstairs, upstairs. And then I put flyers in the checking desk, vitamin department, and dining area. And also I did advertisement on the Facebook. So in that way, I was able to get some people.
Great.
We
Great.
have so far 3 or 4 sessions I have done. So
Nice. So one thing to
haven't done
remember.
much advertising.
Okay. So that's really good. Yeah, you've got that local venue where I know you're with the big health food shop. One thing to remember, whenever you do an event or whenever you meet someone who's interested, please get their email and, if possible, their text phone number, their mobile number.
Yeah, I do have all of their phone numbers. So every time I start new sessions, I send them.
Oh, that's great.
Send them if they would like to join again. Yeah. Some people come back again. So
yeah, because you know these are the people you know that you already know that they're interested. So they're your perfect audience. And text numbers are probably, especially for younger people, more important than the email now, because people tend to respond to texts more than they do to email.
I don't do much email. I do more texting.
Yeah, there you go. You're already so modern. Okay.
I don't know that, but that's how it was.
That's what people respond to. Thanks, Didi. Okay, so I am now going to share my screen, and this time it's going to work. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to skip this. Okay, questions. What's the big deal about questions? Why do I think this is really important? You remember the story from last time, the big jump. So questions are kind of like steps. If people come to something and they have doubts or they have things they need to know, each time they get one of their questions answered, it's a step forward for them. So it becomes very important. But I have a question for you. There's something very specific that Baba says about questions, about people who ask questions. So if you've got a group and there's somebody in the group who's asking a lot of questions, what does Baba say about that? Anybody know? You can use the chat for this rather than the microphone. Find that chat window. There it is. Anybody know? Okay, I will tell you. I believe this is in our Acharya diary, in fact, but it's not secret. So all the Acharyas should know this. It's very simple. Baba says if somebody's in the group is asking a lot of questions, it means they're the one who's they're probably the person who's most interested. Of course, there need to be somebody who's a bit confident enough to ask questions, but nevertheless, if someone's asking questions, it means they're interested. It doesn't mean they're there trying to annoy you, unless the questions are actually annoying. I got to tell you this story. I was in Ireland a few years ago, many years ago, and we had a really successful advertising campaign, and we had 80 people came to this lecture, which was unusual. And I was giving this talk about meditation. Everyone's interested, everyone's listening. And then one guy started asking some kind of aggressive questions. He was saying, are you trying to brainwash people? Where do you get your money? Is this some kind of cult? And I was thinking, and I was trying to answer as kind of, reasonably as I could, but I was really wishing this guy would go away because he was becoming really obnoxious. And then after 3 or 4 questions like this, and it was really changing the whole energy in the room, as you can imagine, the whole vibe was kind of negative from this person. And he obviously had an agenda. Then one really neat lady turns to him and she says, why don't you shut up? We came here to listen to Dada, not to listen to you. And she was like my favorite student from then on. And the guy was completely finished. He didn't come back, and she got initiated. She was really cool. So sometimes questions go a little what I should have done. So looking back, okay, what if you find yourself in that situation? What should I have done? Do you think? Any ideas? I mean, you can't always depend on sort of God in the form of a really brilliant sort of Irish lady helping you, saving you. But what do you think? What's an option? A better option than just continuing to answer the questions, but to handle it diplomatically. Because, it's unlikely, but you might find yourself in a situation a little bit like that, where you've got somebody, and it may not be aggressive questions, it may be just that somebody's taking you way off track from where you wanted to go with the conversation, and it's not good for the group. But you can't, the one thing you can't do is tell them to shut up yourself, because if somebody else does it, that's fine. Okay, yeah, this makes sense. Dee saying I'll give a limit, or you can all read that. Give a time limit for them to ask questions, so everyone has the opportunity to ask. That's one way of doing it. That's cool. Yeah, DDV bar. This is what I was thinking of. Ask them to wait until the end. So I would say exactly. Say, look, I can talk to you personally afterwards. Perfect. Yeah, that's what I should have done. I was too stupid to think of that. I was a little nervous, so it was a bit hard to handle. But yeah, that's exactly how to handle something like that. You say, of course, I'd be happy to discuss this with you afterwards. So you come back to the group. They can talk to you after if they want to. You didn't have to be rude to anybody, but you sort of redirected the conversation. So that's an important thing to remember. As I said, as Abel says, if someone's in the group, they're asking questions, generally it means that they're actually really interested. And they may be the most, the person who has the most interest in the group. So you might want to give them a bit of extra attention, make sure that you follow through with them. I've certainly found that to be the case in almost always. Okay, just going back and referring back to last week, this is one of the things that makes people want to come back. If they firstly have an opportunity to ask questions, and secondly, if they get them answered in a way that really satisfies them, then great, they got value out of the session or the experience. So, giving people space to ask questions, answering them as well as you can is really important. And it's a big part of your role as a person in the group. And sometimes if you're really lucky, or, if maybe a person has a really kind of big, important question, it can make a really big difference. I have a couple of examples I wanted to tell you, and I want to see if maybe some of you have examples you want to share. So one was, many years ago, I was in Australia, and there was this Māori couple, and the husband was, I'd known him a long time, really cool guy. He was super enthusiastic, totally into meditation, under Māori, loved it. His wife was much newer to the practice. She liked the meditation, but she had a big doubt in her mind about the idea of guru, and her husband, she felt like her husband was worshipping the guru, and she didn't feel any relationship with the guru or connection with him, and she didn't know what to do with this, and she was really worried about it. And she kind of was a bit shy to ask me, but she got the courage to ask me about it. And I don't know, I just got a thought that and she'd asked other people. She said, look, I've talked to lots of people about this, and I still it doesn't really resonate with me. And I said, think of it like, when little children, and when they're really small, they come up to a window, what tends to happen is because they're just learning to control their vision, they don't look through the glass. They focus on the surface of the window, and they might see a little bit of reflection, or just see the surface of the glass with some dust or something. They don't actually realize that there's a hole, that they can look through the window. And at some point, they learn to focus through the window. And it's like a whole revelation for them. Oh my God, it's not just a pane of glass, it's a thing I can look through into another part of the world. The guru's physical form is kind of like that. The tendency, when we don't really understand what the guru is to think that the guru is the physical form and think they're just a person. I know, maybe somebody a bit wiser or something like that, but we're focusing on the physical form, on the surface, rather than seeing through and seeing who is behind that form, who is the being that's actually communicating with us. And for some reason, that was just the right answer for her at that time, and it really clicked. And she told me later, she said that was the thing that made the difference for her, and she felt a really personal connection with our guru, and it made an enormous difference to her spiritual practice and her spiritual journey. So, I mean, I was just lucky enough to come up with some metaphor that worked for her in that moment. But that can happen to any one of us. You know, you can be a catalyst for somebody else who needs you to help them connect the dots so that they can take the next step in their journey of sort of self-understanding. The other example I had, which was very recent, in fact, I think it was yesterday. So one of my initiates, he's been meditating for 10 years now, and he's really likes it. He's been planning to go on this tour of India with Dadakripa Sundarananda. It's a 6-week journey and big adventure. He's been wanting to do it for a long time. But he called me yesterday and says, you know, I've just been reading about what's happening in India with the air pollution. They're going to spend a couple of days in New Delhi, and they're going to Rajasthan. They're going to Rishikesh, and he said all of these places have super high levels of pollution, and he said some measurement number of particles in the air that is really way over smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And so he was worried about it, and he was thinking not to go. And so he's asking my advice, so I thought about it, and I thought, well, you know, that's a negative, but you're only going there for a few days. There's a lot of the people that really have a problem are the ones who live there. And yeah, if they live there in that environment and breathing bad air for months and years, they can develop diseases and problems, and that's what's going on. But you're only there for a couple of weeks. Your lungs can deal with that. You know, it's not like you're there for a long time. It's not really an issue. You know, you're going to go there. Maybe it won't be so comfortable. You can take it. You know, in the US, you can buy the best possible oxygen mask if you want to do that. You go there. You're a privileged person in that environment, and I don't think it's a big issue. And that made him feel okay about it. And I said, by the way, you know, even if it's really, really bad, and you live 4 hours less because of it, eventually, it's probably worth it, because you're going on this spiritual pilgrimage and you're going to gain something much greater. That resonated with him. He's going to go. So again, you know, just something came to mind. I was able to connect the dots for him, give him some perspective. So we get, if you're leading a meditation group, if you're talking to people about meditation, you get opportunities to help people. Anybody like to share any little experiences they had where they maybe answered a question and it made a difference? Or if somebody else answered a question for you that made a difference and really made a connection that helped you to understand something. Anyone want to share that? Hey, namaskar, Bharati. Sorry you can't stay the whole time. We've got the recording. You can share it in the chat. Everybody know how to use the chat? Nobody's got any questions that they got answered or that they answered? I'm going to give you 20 more seconds. If you come up with something, just put it in the chat. Okay, now we're going to look at the main piece for today is frequently asked questions. We have a document, which I'm going to share with you in a second. I just want to see this. Oh, that's your assignment. Okay. This document I will now share with you by stopping sharing here. Just checking the chat. Did anyone add anything? No. And I'm going to share again and pick a different page, which will be, I think it's this one. Yes. Okay. This is a Google document, which is a shared document. Any one of you can write on it. You can edit it. And it has 3 tabs along the bottom. This is it's like an Excel sheet if you use Excel. It's similar, but it's a Google Doc, a Google spreadsheet doc. No, not a doc, it's just a Google spreadsheet doc. So you have a link to that, which I believe Didi sent you. Did you send that to everyone, Didi? The Madhupurna?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
This morning.
So you all got the link to this. So you can go to this on your own if you want to. So this has 3 pages, and the first one is the list of questions in chapter 1 of my book, Close Your Eyes and Open Your Mind, which I believe you all have as well. And I think you've all received a digital copy. you may have a printed copy of your own. I'm not going to discourage you from buying a printed copy if you don't have one. Please go ahead. You can get it from me or from Amazon or whoever. And by the way, if you need copies of that for your students, if you want to get 5 or 10 for students, you can get them at a big discount. I know DDB Bar gets them from me a lot, and quite a few other acharyas and magis get them for their students. So that's the first list, and all the answers that I've come up with are in the book. But what I want you to do is go through these, read the answers in the book. This is your assignment, okay? Part one of your assignment for the next. It's actually 2 weeks before our next webinar, so you got plenty of time for it. But I want you to schedule this. Go through all these questions, look at my answers, add any comments, but share the comments with the rest of us because we can all see this. How you think that could be improved, if you think there's something about the answers I've used that you think may be a problem or could be expanded on. I'm actually preparing a new edition of the book, so I'm very interested in getting feedback and making it better. It needs updating anyway. Okay, so that's the first page. There are 24 questions there. I discovered this is the third edition of this book, and I just discovered a rather glaring error in the index at the beginning. Not the index, sorry, the table of contents. There are only, question 11 is repeated. So there are 2 11s and you end up with 23, but there are actually 24 questions. The 2 11s are different. So yeah, after all the proofreading, multiple editions, there are still errors. The joy of writing, self-publishing, you can learn about that. So second set of questions are on my YouTube channel, and here Didi Madhupurna kindly went in and entered all this, started in the middle of the night, or no, early morning I think it was, wasn't it? So these are a similar set of questions, similar number, there's 25. There are some overlap, but a lot of them are different. And of course these are video clips, they're usually 2 or 3 minutes. So again, I'd like you to add comments and your own perspective on those and familiarize yourself with them, okay? So that's the first part of your assignment, is to go through this, familiarize yourself with all these questions and answers, add your own feedback on those or your own reflections. And the next step is to quiz one another on them. So I'm going to get you to pick, every one of you to pick a study buddy, and your study buddy, you and your study buddy are going to make an appointment. In fact, 2 appointments. And in these appointments, you're going to quiz one another on the questions. So no cheating. You're not allowed to have the Google Doc in front of you or the book or anything like that. You're not allowed to be referring to anything. And I want you to spend an hour first session and then another hour on the second session. And then the third page is blank with space for new questions. So what we're doing here, what I want to do here is build a resource for teachers of questions and answers that I might not have thought of when I prepared those first 2. And I actually have a couple I'm going to add to this myself now that I think of it. But yeah, we want to build a really comprehensive question and answer kind of library so that all of our teachers can take a look at, what are good ways to answer these questions, and we can build this as a resource. Okay, any thoughts about that? How do I respond to a question when I don't know the answer? That is a great question. Thanks, Didi. I'm really glad you asked that. We're going to form study buddies in a moment, Ishika. We haven't done it yet. We're going to pair up in a minute. But your question, Didi Anandamadapurna. So how do you respond to a question when you don't know the answer? The most important thing is don't pretend you know the answer when you don't. Okay? So that is a really bad idea. So I just tell them, I don't know. And I might say, look, I can check on it. But of course, now in the age of Google, they're going to go and look for their own answers. So what I do is I'll tell them, look, I'm not sure. I'll take a look at and come up with some good answer myself and talk to you about it next week. And that they're probably going to do their own research, maybe. and they may come across stuff that's valuable, or they may come across stuff that's misleading. So it's important for you to actually do your research, come up with a question that you think is good, and come back to them with it, either through email or call them or answer it next week. Because there's so, like we said last week, how many pages were there about meditation out there on the internet? Who remembers? No cheating. Type a number in the chat if you remember how many searches there were, how many searches there were. Anyone remember? It was something like 430 million. Oh, very good. Close to 400,000 exactly. Yeah, it was 400 million. It was a bit over 430 million something. Prakash, really good point. Prakash saying that if he'll say he doesn't know, but also ask them to say more about their question. That's a really excellent suggestion. Yeah, you also remember the 400 million. Thanks. So yeah, sometimes the issue is that they haven't framed the question clearly, and if they clarify it, you get a better idea of what they're really asking, and that can be a really, really good way to deal with it. So we're getting some excellent suggestions here. I think I want to actually save these questions about these answers because these are really good. Okay, I'm going to add these to this library in some form because I think they're really useful. Oopsie, I'm going to the wrong place here. Okay, so that's the third part. So let's play with this for a minute. Do you have any questions that you've heard or that you have? Oh, okay, here's another great suggestion. Prakash is, some of you may know, Prakash is a really fantastic with group work, and leads group dances and is a great facilitator, very creative. So as we might expect, saying in the group, someone else may have the answer, and if they do, that can be clarified with the teacher. That is really another great way to source responses from the group itself. All terrific stuff. And of course, that also is good for the group dynamics, right? Because everybody then feels, well, wow, I can contribute to this as well. And we've all got knowledge, and that's where you really want to take them, right? Okay, in the mysterious infinity, Didi, you want to know where to get a digital copy of the book. You should have received a digital copy in an email from Didi and Andamadupurna. If you didn't, please send her a note and she will send it to you. Okay. Great stuff for answering questions or dealing with questions in a group. Okay, I want to get your suggestions. Can you come back to this document? Actually, you can just type it in the chat if you don't have the document open. Let's keep it simple. Oh, we've got another great suggestion. In a group, sometimes someone else may have an answer. If they do, that can clarify the teacher. It often strengthens the group when they're trying not to be the only authority. When we are not trying to be the only authority and recognize that group members already know, extremely important. Yeah, this is another great point from Prakash. We live in this era of so-called experts, and I actually think that's a bygone era. Now it's becoming more a generally recognized piece of wisdom, if you like, that everybody has some knowledge. And okay, there are some people who are experts and have specialized in things, but it doesn't mean they know everything. And one of the things I like about questions, I forgot to mention this actually, one of the things I love about getting questions from my students or audience or group is that I learn from them. I mean, they come up with questions occasionally that I've never thought of. And I think, wow, that's amazing. All these years I've been answering questions about this and I never thought about that myself. And so it makes me think more deeply. It also teaches me about them. So this is, why marketers often ask questions. They want to know what people want to know, because then we can satisfy their need. So you're learning a tremendous amount from the questions that people ask you about what they want, and sometimes you learn something new yourself, and then as Prakash is saying, the group comes to understand that they also have knowledge. Everybody has some understanding that may be valuable. A Socratic dialogue process is mutually beneficial for teacher and student. We realize we're all learning and teaching together. Prakash, would you like to unmute your microphone, please, and explain to us how a Socratic dialogue works?
I mean, it's basically, sometimes if I'm going to be teaching something, certain concepts, and I know that maybe the group members have had some familiarity, rather than sort of like just reciting it, I'll ask people to share kind of what they already know. And then, when that's done, people feel empowered. And then when I add clarifications to that or amplify it, it strengthens rather than saying, oh, people don't know it, but I know.
Right.
So I think it's really, the learning process is, I remember seeing that from Bobby. He would often ask questions of people.
Right.
And asking people to kind of, and then he would maybe give corrections or clarify it. But if you begin it's so important to begin from a place of respect, and then people are much more willing to listen to you if you demonstrate that you're listening to them.
Yeah. And it takes on a conversational tone, right? So it's more like, again, we're on the same level. Yeah. It's interesting. By the way, Prakash, there's a lot of background noise, I think.
I'm in a cafe.
Oh, okay. If you can mute when you're finished.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add? I don't? Okay, cool. So yeah, that just reminded me. I went to a talk recently where one quite well-known author, who's a spiritual author, he's a yogi. What's his name? He just called himself Sri M. And he wrote a book that's become very famous. He's an Indian yogi, and so he was giving a talk at Google, actually, and I got an invitation, and I went there, and there's quite a lot of people there. He's been there a few times. He's quite popular. And he gave this talk. I think there were like 50, 60 people. And I was expecting, because I read part of his book, which I thought was quite good. And he gave this talk, which I thought was terrible. It was, don't repeat this, by the way. I would hate to offend him, because I think he's a really good guy. And he's quite a serious yogi. But the talk, I have to say, was alarmingly boring. And I'm thinking, man, this is kind of not what I expected. He's a good writer, but doesn't seem to be. I know it was just so dry, and it went on for half an hour. I was thinking, God, I don't know how I can stand this, because I have a very short tolerance level for boring spiritual talks, because I've experienced many of them. Okay, but then what he did, then he sort of moved. He was standing behind this podium, and he was talking about it was so dry, I can't really remember what it was. But then he sort of sat down on this lounge chair, and he started asking people to ask him questions. And it was fantastic. Because he just, it was a totally different atmosphere, and he was really, really good at answering people's questions in a way that was interesting, and he told stories, and he was a little bit funny, and was completely engaging for the next hour. So, because I was thinking that the boring thing is going to go on for an hour and a half, and I was getting worried, really getting desperate. I couldn't, I'm sort of really visible in my uniform. I couldn't leave without looking like I'm walking out on him, so I didn't want to do that. But I was trapped. But then he became interesting, and it was cool. But it was because it became a dialogue. And it wasn't him trying to play this role that he thought he was supposed to play of being an expert, which he actually is, but that's not it just doesn't suit his personality. He's a great communicator once he relaxes and just speaks naturally. And that's true of many people. So that's again, another reason that questions are so valuable. The question answer, this kind of what Prakash is saying, I think, the Socratic dialogue. It sounds kind of complicated because Socrates was super smart, and probably none of us are nearly as smart as Socrates, but you don't have to be Socrates to engage in a Socratic dialogue. It just means a conversation that, you know, follows an idea and develops it so that it's for mutual understanding. That's my very crude definition of it. I hope it does it justice. But this conversational method of learning is really, really valuable. It's more natural. It's the way that people communicate. Storytelling is something a little bit different. Okay, I tell stories. That's okay. Storytelling is, again, a natural way for people to communicate. But getting up in front of people when you don't really, because you feel you ought to be an expert and talking about stuff that you probably find boring yourself doesn't work. So avoid. Okay, great. We have a lot of understanding that we've gained about asking and answering questions and the value of questions and how they work in a group. So I want to hear from you. I want to go back to microphones, which means I'm going to have to stop sharing. Oh, no, first, before I go to stop sharing, I'm going to just clarify your assignment. So this is, buddies. Okay. First, everyone needs to find a study buddy. So let's do that. We can do that in a minute because I'm going to stop sharing because I'm still figuring out how to use the microphone chat at the same time as screen sharing. I don't know how to do that. It's probably possible. So as I said, once you found your study buddy, which we'll do in a moment, then by yourself, then make your appointments. We're going to do that here. Make your 3 appointments during the next 2 weeks for 1-hour appointments to talk with your study buddy on the phone or Skype or whatever you want. Then before you get to your appointment, you've got to study yourself. You have to study. I suggest you say the first session can be about sheet 1 on the spreadsheet, the questions from my book. The second session will be about the video questions. So you study for each one and then you quiz each other without referring to the book. Okay. Then, so that's the study part. And then you have these quiz, you quiz one another so you really, learn it better. And then for the third session, I want you to come up with new questions. So you meet with your study buddy and you hopefully come with a few questions that you might have heard from other people, or that, you've gone through all these questions, sort of 50 questions, but there are repetitions. So it's really about 40, but there are many others. And you may have thought of some of them yourself. You may have heard them from other people. So I would like you to try and, with your buddy, so that between the two of you, your goal is to add at least 5 new questions to our list with your own suggested answers. Or there may be questions that you really have trouble with, and you can say like seeking answers or something like that. But I want to build this resource because there are lots of questions. Okay, there are a limited number of very frequently asked questions, but every once in a while you get a new one. And the more that you practice this, the better you get at it, the better equipped you are to really help people. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing and we are going to play with microphones. And I want you to find a buddy. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh boy. But Bhairavi's a regular member, so she had to leave early. But maybe Bhairavi can buddy with, I think it's good to buddy with locals as far as possible, because I want you to be nice to see you working together in these projects.
Excuse me to interrupt. I am at work now and I have to actually leave. Sorry to abandon at this moment, but I'll listen to the video later.
But who's your buddy? You have to pick a buddy, quick.
Me? I don't know, but I'm leaving.
Somebody local.
Local? Didi Ananda Panupurna?
Okay, I don't think Didi's going to. You happy, Didi?
Somebody booked me already though.
Oh,
really?
Okay.
Then,
Yeah.
Prakash?
How about
Is that
Prakash?
local enough?
Yeah, we'll see each other on Wednesday.
Oh, great. Okay, so Ishika and Prakash, Didi Madhupurna, who are you buddied with?
Infinity.
Infinity, okay.
Wait a minute, Didi with Didi? No.
Didi Ananda.
No.
She's not allowed to partner with the Didi?
It's not my place. Okay, namaskar.
Namaskar, Ishika.
Okay.
Okay, so 4 of you have buddies. Okay, Peter, maybe you can Peter, I think maybe if you partner with Bharati, it might be good because she's local. I'll connect you with her. And you three, whoever you are, I still don't know, and you haven't responded to my texts. But if you like, you can unmute yourself and tell us who you are. If you can partner with Didi Ananda Vibar. Didi Ananda Vibar, your mission is to discover the secret identity of this person whose tag name, username is Phoenix3, which is a cool name. Phoenix is a great. You know what Phoenix is, right?
I think she's the Janada Vikira.
Nanda Vikirna. Okay, very good. Okay, so Didi Vibar, could you please partner with Didi Vikirna? Peter's with Bharavi, Prakash is with Ishika, Didi Ananda Madhupurna is with Didi Ananda Lalita, who is secretly infinity. Okay, very good. So you have your assignments. So now what you've got to, after this session, as soon as possible, please make those appointments so that you actually meet up 3 times in the next 2 weeks before our next webinar. All right? And we have actually extra time today. This is
the next webinar 2 weeks from today, same time.
It's 2 weeks from today. That is correct. Same time, same place. Didi Lalita say it's not secret. She doesn't know why her name is displayed as Infinity. I don't know either, Didi. I think there's an Infinity company that's somehow involved in this. That provides some sort of web service, and they've somehow. Okay. So what I would want to do, I just thought we might give it a shot at, is in the next, just for a few minutes. We don't need to go all the way to 10:30 or whatever time it is there for you. It must be 1:30 for you in New York. I would like to go to the spreadsheet and come up with questions. So if anyone has any questions that they've been asked that they had trouble with, or that you have yourselves, or that you get asked a lot that you think, why don't you share them with us? I think I've got one myself, which I'm going to bother you with in a minute. Okay, I've got a question which I'm going to post to you. Wait on, I want to post. How do I get my? Okay. Here's my question. I'm just typing it in the chat. There's a question I get a lot, which is not on my big existing list of 40 or 50 questions. And it's very simply, are you a Buddhist? Because, and it's kind of obvious why people might ask this, because they can see that I'm a monk, and they think I tend not to wear my turban, which is kind of maybe not perfect of me, but they think I might be a Buddhist because that's the only kind of monk they know about. And they think meditation, Buddhism. So there's a possible question. Anybody been asked that before? You can use your microphones. We don't need to use the chat. Yeah, Madhupurna, Didi, you've been asked that question. All right. Yeah, Didi Lalita. Yeah, we all get asked this a lot, right? So what's a good way to answer this? I mean, I answer it. But, we have to be diplomatic, right? We don't want to in any way make it look like we're criticizing Buddha or Buddhism or anything, but at the same time, we want to make it differentiate
Yeah, Donna?
Yep.
The Bible talks about how Buddhism, appreciates the core teachings of Buddhism about suffering and the cause for suffering.
Yep.
But it says suffering is experienced by the mind, but that also means that it's the mind that experiences happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And so we say, Tantra is focusing, on happiness. And they're correct that suffering happens because of attachment. But we say we're looking at, the longing for infinite happiness, and that when you let go of attachments to everything but the infinite, that's what we mean by non-attachment. It's non-attachment to the transitory, but being attached to the oneness. It's not constantly changing, disappearing, going away. And if you look at, say, a Buddhist meditator who can establish well-known practice, why do they keep doing it? Well, they're happy. There's a happiness or a bliss about them.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you look at Thich Nhat Hanh or the Dalai Lama, they're really happy.
Yeah, so clearly they're doing something right, and it's because, otherwise they wouldn't be doing their practice if they never got any
right
happiness from that. So
that's a nice way to differentiate without criticizing, because you're basically saying, we have a different approach, somewhat different approach to the same goal, but actually there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
That's a cool example of how to respond to that. Both diplomatically and differentiating at the same time, because I think it's true. I think that is a genuine distinction between Anandamaga meditation and Buddhist meditation. Well, it's a philosophical distinction, you could say, that Buddha kind of begins with a negative, an observation about the negative consequences of being attached to things. And while, of course, in our philosophy we acknowledge that as well, that's not our primary emphasis. Our primary emphasis is on focusing on the goal of bliss or of happiness. But the broadly speaking, the two approaches take us in the same direction. Okay, that's an interesting one. Anybody have any other questions? They get asked quite a lot that might be useful to look at. We're going to do, maybe a couple more. Okay, I've got one which I get a lot, partly because of where I live, but we all live in this sort of tech-infested world. A lot of people ask me if a lot of people simply say to me, look, I've tried meditating with a meditation app. Do you think meditation apps are useful, or do you think that's the right way to go? Should I be using an app? So it's basically a broad question about what about meditation apps? This is a very common question for me at least. I'd be curious to know if others, if any of you get the same question, because I know there's hundreds of millions of people using apps, meditation apps now, and that's, for many of them, that's their introduction to meditation. So talking to one of us might be their next step. So we need to know how to respond to that. Any thoughts on that? Anybody get asked that? You can use them. Unmute your mic if you want to speak to us. I'd love to. First question is, has anybody else been asked that? I'm really interested to know. Okay. Maybe it's never been asked. I should not be asked. Maybe I'm living in the Silicon Valley bubble. Okay, it really is a bubble, I tell you. So you've never been asked. That's really interesting. Didi, Madhupurna, Prakash, never been asked. None of you have been asked this. How about you, Peter? You live here. Peter?
Obviously nobody asks me such questions yet.
Oh, because they don't think of you as a meditation teacher, I guess.
Sure.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. Oh, Didi Lalita. Well, Didi, this is really interesting. This is exactly, we were both in California. Didi gets asked about this a lot. So what do you tell them, Didi? I'm curious. Use your mic. You don't have to type it. Didi Lalita, I'm talking to. Yeah.
I told them that they're to see what works for them. Because different people use different types.
Yep. that's a very an easy, simple, sort of general, broad answer. What if they ask you, well, which is better, to meditate with a group, to meditate with an app? Can I do both?
No, I always tell them, I often told them that definitely to meditate with a group is much more beneficial. But if the group is not available,
Yeah.
and they found using the app helps, then they can use it. But actually, I have come across quite at least a dozen of individuals that use apps. But now the most popular one is the Buddhist way. When you get on the app, the search engine takes you to the Vipassana meditation or the Buddhist way of meditation.
Right.
Including your apps.
Yeah.
You got confused with the Buddhist way of meditation.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's true. And there's particularly in the US, I think, and maybe particularly on this West Coast, mindfulness and which is essentially, well, it's certainly a part of Vipassana. It's a part of various forms of Buddhism, and it's a part of our practice too, but we don't use that term so much because it really means concentration in a way. But yeah, but I think your answer is great. I use that as well if I want to give a simple answer. Meditating in a group's really beneficial. The advantage of the app is that it's more available. You can use that to, if it helps to meditate between group sessions. That's the simple version. I'm actually writing I'm writing a long article about this, and I've got a whole scale of quality as the quality of your meditation experience sort of increases, the convenience and availability of it decreases. They're kind of in inverse proportion to each other. So on one scale you have, okay, a very simple app which is generic. It's the same for everybody. It's not real human beings. It's just a little bunch of electrons and stuff. That's super convenient, often free, but the depth of experience I'm likely to get from it is quite limited. The other end of the spectrum is meditating with a tantric guru in India is like the ultimate meditation opportunity. It's like the best possible experience, but it's super difficult and unavailable, or very hard to get to or get access to. So, and then I've got a whole scale on both of them, and they really are in inverse proportion to one another. The best, highest, sort of most deeply spiritual experience is much more difficult to get access to, and the opposite. So I've got a whole discourse on that I'm going to publish as a long article shortly. Anyway, that's but Didi's answer is much simpler, and I think you should choose that. The apps are great for beginners. Yep, they help to develop the habit, so that's one of the advantages. Didi's just writing that comment. You can read that. I want to just refer to Prakash's point. So Prakash says, people talk to me about going to a 10-day meditation retreat for the first time, or repeating that experience. And he talks about the analogy of training to become a runner, and they're starting by taking part in a marathon. And that's a great analogy. It's really hard. I mean, people suffer in these retreats, and some of them actually are put off meditation by it. I didn't mention that earlier, but I have met people who went through this 10-day thing and they stuck it out, or they didn't stick it out. They left and they avoided meditation because they felt it was too hard. So there is actually, it's not, I don't think it's necessarily the best way for people to get introduced to meditation. It seems to me too harsh and too abrupt, and too much like a marathon instead of building up to it. And there are actually, this isn't specifically in relation to Vipassana retreats as far as I know, but there are some cases of people who've actually become quite disturbed from being thrown into an intensive meditation without properly being prepared for it. And there's some reporting on that and some research which is showing up negative effects of meditation. And it's mainly because they're being introduced into something too abruptly, too harshly. But a good point Prakash just added that, sorry, Didi's just talking about the apps. Yeah, many like the apps and keep going back to them. Yeah, everyone's different. And all the apps are different. I mean, there's like 150 apps out there at least, I think. And each app has a whole lot of different content. And so each one of those, there's thousands, literally thousands and thousands and thousands of meditations you can get access to through even one app. It just, what's it called? Insight Timer. There are more than 4,000 teachers on there. Oh, Didi, you were talking about the meditation, the 10 days retreat when you're saying that everyone's different. Yeah, some people get a lot out of it. Some like it. Keep going back to it. I see what you mean. Okay. Yep. Some people, they like the 10-day thing, still have a hard time meditating. Yeah, we already noted that happens. Yeah, because the world's full of distractions. The whole reason perhaps that they like the 10 days that's a time when for once they're free of distractions and they get a lot of benefit from it for sure. But yeah, Didi gave a workshop, Didi Madhupurna, and most of them are Muslim, and their belief is that they don't sit on the floor unless they're praying. How do I respond? Interesting. So I haven't been asked that question. Get away from their phones. Yeah, it's true. It's a nice fast from electronics addiction. But Didi's question about the Muslims, yeah, how would you respond to that? Most of them are Muslim. Their belief is that they don't sit on the floor unless they're praying. How do we respond to that? Oh, I see. You're suggesting that they get away from their phones. Okay. Suggest that they sit in a chair. That's not a bad idea. When I teach sometimes at companies, I usually have them sitting in chairs unless we happen to have access to one of their meditation rooms on that day. Okay, Didi, you told them they can sit in a chair. That's fine. You know, it kind of depends what they're used to, but you can. I mean, that's a big question, really. The whole thing of how to introduce people who are from a Muslim background to meditation. It a lot depends on the environment. How serious are they about their? Are they dogmatically into it, or are they just? I'd need to know more about the audience before I'd know how to respond to that. I mean, we've got 4 Sufis coming to the Winter Bliss Retreat. They're Muslims, but they consider themselves Sufis. So they're, as you know, this is a much more sort of mystical tradition associated with Islam, and I don't think they're going to have a problem as long as we don't create one for them, because they're really into dance and chanting, and that's a part of Sufism. So they love kirtan already. At least the two of them have already come to a retreat. 2 of them are going to be completely new, but they're not your typical Muslim. But there's a whole spectrum of Muslims. So that's a neat question to add to our list. Didi Madhupurna, would you like to add that to the spreadsheet? I think that's a really interesting one. And we're going to build that. Okay, I think we're going to wind it up. Time to finish. Everyone's got your buddies. You've got your assignments. Didi Madhupurna, would you please send out a reminder to everyone about meeting with their buddies, and also again before the next webinar? That would be great. Thank you very much, and thanks so much for helping with this. Doing a lot of work on this. That's great. Oh, so the Sufis coming for the winter retreat, they've registered, so you've got their emails already on the oh, you want to know who they are on the list? I see what you mean. Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll send you their names. Yeah, I think you know, they're very new. Two of them I don't even know. Anyway, thanks to all of you so much. And I've been experimenting webinars. I've tried to make this one much more interactive. I felt like it went much better than the last one. Really appreciate a lot of your input. It's been really, I've learned a lot from this because questions are cool. All right. Thank you, everybody. Namaskar. Talk to you again soon.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Namaskar, everybody. Looking forward to seeing you soon. Okay. I'm going to end the thing, but I know I'm going to save this group chat because I want some of the content. So I'm going to figure out how to do that. So I'm not actually going to end the meeting because unless I save this, it disappears. But you can log out.